To continue, I would like to invite Dr. Đặng Hoàng Giang, the Deputy Director of Aggregate, with a presentation on the provincial performance 2021 findings and the trends from 2020 and 2021. I believe that the provincial participants are longing to this presentation. The floor is over to you, Dr. Giang.
Good morning to all of you. I'm so happy to be here today on site with all of you. And last summer and last autumn was worrisome because we thought that there might be some disruption in PAPI. Luckily, with the patience and creativity and some luck for the team, we've managed to complete PAPI 2021 and no disruption. And we would like to thank nearly 16,000 respondents to PAPI, and many of them had to work for long distance to attend the one-to-one interviews. And in the next 20 minutes, I would like to share some key findings at the provincial level. And I'm sure that many participants are longing for this discussion. They want to find out how residents perceive and thought about the provincial performance. And I'm not going to cover all the dimensions. I would like to start with the first dimension, that is citizen participation at local levels. Here, we looked at their participation via their participation in the election as well as the contribution, voluntary contribution. And here we have 4 tiers: best performer in dark blue, and then a high average in green, and then average, and the light yellow is a low performers. And all provinces score between 4 and 6 points between a 1 to 10 point scale. This so the results were average and not much progress or improvement during the last 13 years. At the regional level, and similar to like in previous years, provinces in the north tend to perform better, where you see the dark blue and green concentrated more on the north than in the south. However, some provinces in the south center and center highlands emerged to the top quartile. And this is an important change as compared to previous years. And 2 important points to highlight. That is the rate of respondents who directly came to the voting places was 40 to 50%, while you know that the participation rate in election reported by media was about 90%, but it's not direct voting. And the Mekong Delta provinces at the lower end, you see, have 40% of direct voting. And at the higher, the other end, you see Lạng Sơn or Nam Định, you have we had 60%. And the second point is for the head of village election, whether they have at least two candidates or not. And here you see Hồ Chí Minh City, Tiền Giang or Trà Vinh. Very few respondents told us that there were more two or more candidates. So the elections were kind of like a very nominal, and Hòa Bình, Yên Bái, or Thái Bình, we see a better picture where the respondent told us that there are more than two candidates or more for the village head election. And from Paul's presentation, you see that it seems that the election of the village heads does not receive much attention these years, and this is an important fact that we should observe more in the future. And the next dimension have to do with transparency, and here it has to do with the transparency of the commune budget expenditure, poverty list, or land use plans. And here, provinces score between 4.2 to 6.25% points. So it's kind of like average or below average. And similar to previous years, provinces in the north tend to perform better than southern counterparts. Hanoi is in the second quartile. Ho Chi Minh City and Da Nang in the third quartile. And poorer performers concentrated more in South Center Highlands, and Mekong Delta region. So there hasn't been much change as compared to previous years. And about 1/4 here made significant improvements of more than 5%. You see Bình Dương, Lạng Sơn, Thanh Hóa, Thừa Thiên Huế. These are provinces that recorded most significant improvement in this dimension. And here, over there, you have Tiền Giang, Bến Tre, Cần Thơ, where you saw year-on-year declines between 15 to 20%, relatively significant. And two important figures I would like you to pay attention to, that is the rate of respondents said they receive the information they need from the local governments. Best performer like Cần Thơ, Hà Nội, Thừa Thiên Huế, only 20% said that they received the information they needed, while at the other hand, Tiền Giang, Hậu Giang, Sóc Trăng in the Mekong Delta region, only 5% said that they received the information that they need. And similarly, the very low rate of respondents said that the information received was reliable, and this is something worrisome. Similarly to information on land, here that is the rate of respondents said that they have access to land use plans, and the highest bar, Thừa Thiên Huế, Lạng Sơn, you see 20 to 30% of respondents said that they have access to land information, and here Bến Tre, Đà Nẵng, or Trà Vinh, the rate was very low. And at the national level, the rate is 14 or 15%, and it's a significantly backward step as compared to 2009. So this is something that we should reflect upon. And the third dimension is vertical accountability. Who did they approach when they have some issues, and how local governments react or respond to such to complaints or concerns? And here, all provinces score below 5 out of the 1 to 10 point scale, and as usual, better performing provinces are still concentrated in the north, particularly the north center, like Nghệ An, Thanh Hóa. Though the performance needs improvement, but they performing better than other provinces. And as Paul said in his presentation, only Bình Dương recorded insignificant improvement, while many of them saw declines. Probably this has been due to the pandemic, because resources have been used up for the COVID-19 prevention and control. That's a possible explanation. And most respondents said when they had some issues or some complaints, they went to the People's Committee rather than People's Council. And here you can see that very few respondents came to People's Council. In some provinces, it's only 1%. So here came the question of the representative role, the role to represent its residents, played by People's Council. And this information should be thought carefully, seriously, considered seriously by People's Council.
Moving on to the fourth dimension, I believe everybody is paying attention to. It is the control of corruption in the public sector, particularly in the context of COVID-19. Prior to COVID-19 years, since 2016, this dimension has received positive assessment. The provincial scores in this dimension range widely from 5.42 to 8.15 points on the 1 to 10 point scale. And we find more balance in regional distribution, unlike the past 10 years when southern provinces dominated the top quartile. So we see that this is in contrary in the previous years, where the northern provinces and the north central provinces seem to be in these places. So we see that the first and the second quartile of the performers in this dimension shows an interesting change. So it seems that compared to last year, 2020, the changes is more balanced. So about 1/3 of provinces have shown improvements in the south, including Bình Dương and Lâm Đồng, showing the most significant improvements. On the contrary, Bến Tre, Điện Biên, and Đồng Tháp are the provinces that saw declines of over 15%. So this is the first year after many years. On the general level, the reduction of corruption seems to be stagnant. And the next year will be an interesting year for us to see whether this moderation is only an event for 1 year or is a trend. This is a new way of presenting our findings. So I will be slow with this one to give you a clearer explanation. Here we show the importance of personal relationship for state employment by provinces in 2021, and we'll look at 5 positions here: land registry officer, commune justice officer, commune police, public primary school teachers, and people's committee. So we see that the smaller it is, represents that the people say that they don't need to have personal relationship to have a position to be a servant on this position. However, we see that there is a significant number of provinces with bigger diamonds, suggesting that participants say that they need to have this personal relationship in order to be on one of these 5 positions. And we see that the personal relationships remain important and very important for 5 public officers at the commune level, even among top performers like Bình Dương and Thanh Hóa. And as with 2020, Điện Biên and Sơn La are still among provinces where personal relationships to have a state employment are most profound. And we also see that in the Bình Dương or Thanh Hóa or Hưng Yên, these size of the star is their biggest. So we now have seen more balance or more transparency in terms of state employment in a number of provinces here. However, in other sub-dimensions, we see that bribery is still fairly common. For example, bribery for land use rights certificates and healthcare services. So in terms of obtaining land use rights certificates, the ratio of respondents having to bribe for good results is still significant. The proportions of applicants for land use rights certificates that pay the bribe range from 40 to 90% in more than 2/3 of all provinces. Similarly, the proportions of users of district public hospitals that pay the bribe ranged from 40 to 80% in more than 2/3 of all provinces. So twice or thrice the ratios in Ho Chi Minh City, Đồng Tháp, or Bình Phước. Even though the proportions of briberies in these provinces are lower, they are still not low. In terms of public services delivery, electricity, roads, health stations, law and order. Interestingly, this is an area receiving the most complaints from the media. It is true to a certain extent, but people are also very fair, and this is an area where they give their highest score to government's performance. And we see that more respondents are satisfied with the performance in this dimension, and we also find a more even distribution of good performers across the country, and we don't see the striking differences as we could see in other dimensions. So this is a dimension where we can see a higher level of satisfaction expressed by respondents. Compared to last year, the majority of provinces have shown improvements. Despite severe impacts of COVID-19, the quality of these key public services has not shown significant decline. And on the contrary, we have seen significant improvements in terms of law and order. So this is one of the most significant results as a result of the effective use of resources in the public sector. So we have seen these positive results. So I'll skip this. Just one more point regarding online learning equipments. About 60% of respondents stated that the schools that their children are attending provide sufficient equipment or facilities for online learning, and this is a great effort. However, we know that the quality of online education does not only have to do with facilities, but it is related and driven by many other factors. But fortunately, we can have fairly positive results on online teaching and learning. Finally, governance, and Dr. Edmund Maleski has talked about this quite at length, so I will not be drilling into it too deeply. I just want to note here that all provinces scored below 5 points on the 10-point scale in 2021, and we also see that there is a contrast between the number of people having access to internet and the number of people accessing to the e-government portals, because we know that while there is a significant number of Vietnamese residents having access to internet, but despite these good hardware infrastructures, the proportions of residents having access or accessing to e-government portals is still very limited, and there is no striking difference between more advanced provinces and the less advanced one, or the better performers and the poorer performers. So the problem here is not just because of the existence of the hardware and physical facilities and infrastructures. It seems that the investments in physical infrastructures has not yet brought about positive impacts. Finally, the 2021 aggregate PAPI scores. So it's like we have 8 learning subjects, and we now adding up the scores of all these 8 subjects. And we see that the provincial scores ranged from 37.22 to 48.05 points on the 10 to 80 point scale. So the better performing provinces, even the best performers, only 48 points out of the 80. So it means that there is a significant room for improvement in subsequent years. We also see that the northern regions and the north central coast regions are the areas with the better performance, while south central coastal and Mekong Delta provinces have seen dips in performances. And Ho Chi Minh City this year is found in the low performing quartile, and so we may need to question the impacts of COVID-19 on the strength and resilience of the city, because corruption or transparency might not necessarily be so heavily affected by COVID-19. So there should be something else behind this deterioration. And so when we compare the median values, the provincial dimensional scores between the 2 years, we see that the public service delivery, environmental governance, and e-governance have seen more improvements in 30 provinces. And while other 30 provinces declined in the remaining dimensions. So when we compare the highest and lowest provincial dimensional scores, we see that for dimension 3, vertical accountability, the gap is fairly small. And the second dimension, where the difference is not that big, is public administrative procedures. So either poorer or richer provinces, we don't find much difference in the experience of citizens. However, with regard to control of corruption in public sector, we see a big divide between better performers and poorer performers. And same is observed with environmental governance and participation at local levels. And this is also my final slide. And I hope that you will spend your time to read through the PAPI 2021 report. please go online to look for these information and data for your own purposes. And each province or each person would find the area of their most interest to explore the richness of PAPI report. And this has been our great effort in order to assist the governments to improve their policy making. Thank you very much for your attention.